when I was a teenager in the 70s, just before and during punk, you couldn't move for this song. It was everywhere. Alistair MacDonald used to be on the telly just about every Saturday night, skipping up and down some mountain or another, singing some sort of songs. And this was one of them. But it's this magnificent thing that Jim's got, okay, where he takes a beautiful melody and puts the hardest of all words to that beautiful melody. And this is a great example of that. There are more songs I'm going to do throughout the night that fit in with that. But when I interviewed him for Celtic Music Radio about 3 years ago, and we were talking about Dominic Bean and rebel songs and Scottish Republican songs, and I said to Jim, pretty much knowing what the answer was going to be, but I asked him for the sake of being on the radio, says, Jim, are there any Scottish rebel songs? He says, Gavin, they're all rebel songs. Cruel is the snow that sweeps Glencoe and covers the brave old Donna. Iron cruel was the foe that raped Glencoe and muttered the house of Maclean. It came in a blizzard, we offered them eat, a roof over their heads and dry shoes for their feet. We wined them, we dined them, they ate of our meat, and they slept in the house of MacDonald. Come on, help me. Cruel is the snow that sweeps Glencoe and covers the grave old tunnel. Iron cruel was the foe that raped Glencoe and muttered the house of Maclean. They came in the night when our men were asleep, a band of our guides through the snow, soft and deep, like muttering foxes among helpless sheep. They slaughtered the house of MacDonald. Iron cruel is the snow that sweeps Glencoe and covers the grey old tunnel. Iron cruel was the foe that raped Glencoe and muttered the house of Maclean. You're sounding great. Some died in their beds at the hand of the foe. Some fled in the night and got lost in the snow. Some lived to accuse him who dealt the first blow. Aye, but God was the house of MacDonald. Cruel as a snow that sweeps Glencoe and covers the grave old tunnel. Iron cruel was the foe that raped Glencoe and muttered the house of MacDonald. My granny was a MacDonald. They had come from Fort William with murder in mind. The Campbell had orders, yet King Billy he had signed. But all to the sort, these words were underlined: leave no one alive called MacDonald. Iron cruel is the snow that sweeps Glencoe and covers the grave old tunnel. Iron cruel was the foe that raped Glencoe and muttered the house of MacDonald. much. What a great song. I'm just young enough that I can't remember a time when you couldn't go out for a pint on a Sunday. I think the Licence in Scotland Act was 1976.
I can remember.
I was 16, so I kind of passed me by. By the time I was legally drinking at 18, you could go out for a pint on a Sunday. The off sales was an entirely different thing. You know, I mean, that was ludicrous. I mean, that was fairly recently. Anyhow. I just thought I would mention the drink because this one here is called the Scottish Sabbath. And on the refrain, I will be Preacher Gav, and you will all go, Tura Lura, Lura Lura Lay. Okay? Imagine you're in Scotland on a Sunday afternoon. Tura Lura 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 Lay. Your throat is dry and dusty as a summer's day in June. Tura Lura 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 Lay. A whiskey or a shandy will suit you fine and dandy, but nothing rough will ever come your way. To whistle or be merry, even travel on the ferry, will it get you home on Scotland's Sabbath day? 2,000 years ago there lived a man in Galilee. Go! And he was persecuted by the local Pharisee. For on Sunday he was willing to cure the sick and ailing, or take 5,000 people out to dine. The Sabbath day, said Jesus, was surely made to please us, and then he turned the water into wine. The ministers will curse you and they'll threaten you with hell. Unless you can afford the price they charge in big hotels. But in every land that's foreign, in England or in Holland, the pubs are never shut on Saturday. But here they take communion and join in holy union. The Lord be with you now, come Sabbath day. In the 1950s, Jim was eligible to do national service, but he chose to do 6 months in Berlin rather than do 2 years in Her Majesty's service. Now, that was incredibly brave in the conformist 50s, right? For Jim to go and do that, but he shrugs these things off and was just, there's no way. I think, I can't remember which one of the Crisis or whatever was on at the time, but he said, no, there's no way I'm doing that. So, I mean, my dad, probably most of us, their father did either army or national service, and I can't imagine how. Anyhow, he then went travelling around the world with Nigel Denver, and when he came back, Nigel's ex-school teacher, Maurice Blythman, was putting together a sort of like almost a group like this, only it was in his house up in the Balgry Hill in Springburn, and from that grew Ding Dong Dollar and the Anti-Polaris songs. Directly from that, Maurice was the guiding light, but Jim was probably one of the main contributing songwriters to that. And on the front cover of Ding Dong Dollar, Jim McLean standing there, Maurice is there, Hamish Imlach's in semi-profile, Marion Blythman, who's still alive, of them, Jim and Marion are the only ones that are still there, Nigel Denver and Josh McRae. I mean, the stuff that they did was absolutely phenomenal. And that was kind of the start for Jim in his writing, but he found that the Republican thing was a big sticking problem here in Scotland and in Glasgow in particular. And actually on the cover of Ding Dong Dollar it says anti-nuclear and Scottish Republican songs. That's what it says. But it had to get made in New York. Nobody would make it here. It didn't come out here until it was Transatlantic Records in the late 60s, and they called it something else entirely. Right? But from that base in New York, and thanks to Pete Seeger, the whole sort of thing kind of took off, and Jim became a songwriter, but he had to move to London for the very same reasons, to try and sort of work his craft. So he started writing and producing, and he was the Dubliners' first roadie at the time they were on top of the pops with 7 Drunken Nights. Can you imagine what it'd be like being out in the road with that? The 5 original Dubliners at their absolute peak. It's unbelievable. And if you've got the Dubliners version of Tibby Dunbar, look at the label and it says Robert Burns / Jim McLean. Jim wrote the second verse for Tibby Dunbar because it wasn't long enough to record, and that's now passed into the tradition, and everybody sings the second verse as being Burns. And on we go, and they're working with Alistair MacDonald, and basically they wrote a whole series of songs about the clearances. And I was talking to Iona about this, that you could essentially make a song cycle of Jim's clearances songs, and we might just do that, you know, and I think that would work really well. And one of the other things that he did was he put this piece of poetry to music. It lay pretty much neglected, and I would say, any point, maybe you may want to pick me up on this, but I think it lay pretty much neglected for the best part of 60 years. It was written by a man called John S. Clarke, who was a Glaswegian councillor, very much sort of Mary Barber's contemporary, and you know, very much part of that whole sort of thing. And he wrote this poem when Maclean was in Peterhead jail, and it's the only known piece of art or writing, whatever you want to call it, that survives from its contemporaneous of Maclean actually being in jail. This is the only thing that's known. And it probably would have stayed in some sort of dusty book, but Jim set it to the same tune that Woody Guthrie used for Tom Joad. And it got placed on one of Alistair's albums. It never got picked up. I don't know why. It never became a big song. It's either John Maclean or the man in Peterhead. You can call it what you like. Resolutions, and you think you've done your bit, and you feel there's nothing more that you can do. Why not act, and in your actions try to emulate the grit of the man in Peterhead who acts for you? We do that as a repeat. Of the man in Peterhead who acts for you. Brilliant. He's very grateful for your money, he appreciates your cheers. Aye, your sympathy is ample for his needs. But there's more important things than resolution, cash or tears. Why not give him, say, a sample of your deeds? Why not give him, say, a sample of your deeds? It was for you he gathered knowledge and he sacrificed his youth. He worked for you until his head was grey. And they're killing him by inches because he thought the truth, and having thought it, aye, he had the guts to say. Having thought it, aye, he had the guts to say. For truth's the kind of virtue that the ruling classes fear. By the foulest means to crush it they have tried. Was for truth. Stores of hate were hurled at prophet and at seer. And for truth a gentle man was crucified. Aye, for truth a gentle man was crucified. Destruction on that tyrant's battleground, when you let their cursed wrong defeat our right. He is one against an army. Are you going to see him downed? Are you going to see him die without a fight? Are you going to see him die without a fight? Because he'll pay you back in plenty. It's you that stands to gain. His lion heart is yours if only he is spared. Then workers, for your own sakes, liberate Maclean. You can do it, aye, tomorrow, if you dared. You can do it, aye, tomorrow, when you've passed your resolutions. When you've passed your resolutions, you feel you've done your bit. You think there's nothing more, you think there's nothing more that you can do. Why not act? Why not act? And in your actions try to emulate the grit of the man in Peterhead who acts for you. Of the man in Peterhead who acts for you. He acts for you. Aye, the man in Peterhead, he acts for you. Thanks very much. This is one that Jim wrote in 1969 for Nigel Denver. It very much speaks to the politics of 1969, and with a slight rewrite, I think this could be still very, very relevant today. Jim was writing songs about Scottish independence and Republican Scotland before anybody was even thinking about it. It just wasn't a thing. So he wrote this one here, it's quite cheeky. It's called The Workers of the World. Come workers of the world, we must unite and help our people in their freedom fight. No matter what their race or the colour of their face, come workers of the world, we must unite. Now that's pretty standard agitprop. You're not going, nobody is going to argue with that chorus. Remember what Marx said to you and me. The one who loves another can be free. And while the English crown keeps another nation down, every Englishman's denied democracy. Come workers of the world, we must unite and help our brothers in their freedom fight. No matter what their race or the colour of their face, come workers of the world, we must unite. Those Scottish workers have no government. Wales is ruled by England's Parliament. In Northern Ireland's police state, they're subsidised by us, mate. We have to fight for them like Lenin meant. Come workers of the world, we must unite. Help our people in their freedom fight. No matter what their race or the colour of their face, come workers of the world, we must unite. So while our anger burns for those oppressed by Uncle Sam, John Bull and all the rest, remember in these highlands and the lowlands and the highlands, there are nations that we only hold in chest. Come workers of the world, we must unite and help our people in their freedom fight. No matter what their race or the colour of their face, come workers of the world, we must unite. Come workers of the world, we must unite. Jim wrote this, it's called The Laird's Prayer, not the Lord's Prayer, but The Laird's Prayer. And you had to see Nigel apparently be down on his knees and giving it the full and I'm not going to do that. I mean, I will try a little bit of method, you know, I'll get into character, you know, I can feel it coming on just now. I can feel the Presbyterianism seeping back into my blood, you know. Oh God, who sends us all things, partridge, grouse and deer, please send the aristocracy to do some shooting here. My royal, loyal ancestors, they got me this estate to please their English masters, forced the folk to emigrate. Oh Lord, thou kens me well, though my name's McPhee, I'll try to be as English as yourself. I'm a simple Highland lady, so hear my lady's prayer, and always on the Sabbath I'll be yours forevermore. The fishing here is sacred, there's peace within the glen, since you helped us clear the highlands of the Sabbath drinking men. Oh Lord, thou kens me well, though my name's McPhee, I'll try to be as English as yourself. These empty crofter shillings, we've turned them into pens, for sheep can I be bought and sold, but men are just, well, men. You ken this lady shepherd, for you would do the same, except your righteous English flock of double-barreled men. Oh Lord, thou kens me well, though my name's McPhee, I'll try to be as English as yourself. And how holy is Balmoral, now that all our hymns are sung by our betters down in Crathy in the Anglo-Saxon tongue. But should the Gaels be welcomed home, and I am forced to flee, let me be down in London town, nearer, my God, to thee. O Lord, thou kens me well, though my name's McPhee, I try to be as English as yourself. Jim still writes. I asked him if he could do something to sing on the doorsteps at the start of COVID back in March and April last year. Both of my parents were still alive at the time, and they would come down to the door, and I wanted something to sing that would fit that, and I thought Yes NHS would be absolutely brilliant to fit with Yes UCS. So I thought maybe Jim would write me a chorus. He sends me something like 25 verses, naming just about every occupation and every worker that you could think of. So, like I say, he is still very much creative and creating. When I do yes, please clap your hands. You know, so it's like, tell it on the radio, tell it in the press, clap for the workers, yes. I know, right? But not every audience is as well cultured as yourselves. Sometimes you need to explain things to folk. Right? Yes, NHS, tell it on the radio, tell it on the press, clap for the workers, yes, clapping for the workers. They don't care if you're black or brown, they lift you up when you are down. They even us, that Tory clown, we support the nurses. Yes, NHS, tell it on the radio, tell it on the press, clap for the nurses. Yes, we support the nurses. Some of them are out of sight, risking danger day and night. Cleaners also join the fight, and we support the cleaners. Yes, NHS, tell it on the radio, tell it on the press, clap for the cleaners. Yes, clapping for the cleaners. Cheer for the carers of the old, those fearless folks with hearts of gold. The love cannot be bought or sold, and we support the carers. Yes, NHS, tell it on the radio, tell it on the press, clap for the carers. Yes, and we support the carers. You get the hang of it now, come on! Thank the drivers of your bus, on with the job without a fuss, simply taking care of us, and we support the drivers. Yes, yes, NHS, tell it on the radio, tell it on the press, clap for the drivers, yes, 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 clapping for the drivers. Think of the folk that bake your bread while you're sleeping in your bed. They're the folk that keep you fed, and we support the bake. I'm going to go around to everybody. Yes, yes, yes. Tell it on the radio, tell it on the press, clap for the bakers, and we support the bake. I'm not really, this is the last one. Doctors, midwives, spark folk too, speedy paramedic crew, all up there for me and you. We support all workers, yes, yes, NHS, tell it on the radio, tell it on the press, clap for the workers, yes, 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 we support one more time, yes, yes, NHS, tell it on the radio, tell it on the press, clap for the workers, yes, 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 clapping for the workers.
Well, tonight we've got four. We've got three great poets and me. And the first poet tonight is Graham Fulton. Graham's from Paisley. He's just published his 20th book with Seahorse Publications. From Tower of Babel to Humaning the Iron Barman, right up into Replacement Service Collected Bus Poems. Put your hands together for Graham Fulton.
The Soul Searcher. Someone is shouting on a dark COVID street at 3 a.m. Close enough but far away. Belligerent but not incensed. Insane but not certifiable. Repeating complex vocal patterns. Moans and gripes, codes of anguish, rising and falling. Dwindling as he slowly progresses. Inside his footsteps, time passes. He's probably tired of lockdown, cheesed off with Brexit, a lack of compassion in modern society, a lack of social interaction in a favourite hostelry, a lack of vitamin D in his diet, and he wants the blighted land to know it. He wakes everyone, lights come on in unlit homes. His sound gets smaller and then it's gone. I can feel his pain. I could be his friend. At 5 a.m. he's back again. Oh, shut the fuck up, you fucking arsehole! The Poetry Reaper. Sitting in the Scotia after John McGarrigle, who was killed in the Clutha's funeral, wolfing triangular tuna sandwiches and listening to someone singing "We Shall Overcome" into a feedback microphone, I ask Bobby Christie if he remembers walking home 25 years ago from Tom Leonard's writers group in Paisley in the dark with towering orange street lamps and turning left into Penalea Road where a cop in a panda wound down his window and asked us what we had in our bags, to which we shouted, "Poetry!" in unison, lifted thick, majestic photocopies and poems of 30 years by Edwin Morgan into the air as he looked on in horror and told us to be on our way and not to do it again. And Bobby disappeared over the hill as I turned right into Athol Crescent To go to a house where I no longer live, to talk to people who are no longer there, and Jim Ferguson is wearing a burning red tie and brandishing a virtual cigarette, and We Shall Overcome was sung by Joan Baez in 1963. It's really hard to believe. It feels as if yesterday has still to happen. Tomorrow is already gone. Okay, this one has some musical content. It's about coming back from the Edinburgh Festival on the last train to Glasgow and foolishly trying to read a book. Around. Aboard the final evacuation train from the festival to Glasgow and trying to read Highland River by Neil M. Gunn with Ken and his salmon searching for the source of life, the meaning of all. But it's no use, as the guitarist of Wet, Wet, Wet is sitting beside me and the whole carriage is singing, I feel it in my fingers, I feel it in my toes. At the tops of their voices, including me, and he's sitting there with a big sappy grin on his top of the pop's face, and a young paralytic woman draped on a table, necking a bottle of red, is shouting that she travelled the whole length of the train and all the toilets were blocked until she unblocked one with her bare hand and saved everyone's life. And the whole carriage is now singing, Sweet Little Mystery, except me. And I think of Ken peering into the darkness of the pool, the furthest depths of light, and I can't think of anything to say to the guitarist, which is just as well, as it would certainly be, I preferred the Jesus and Mary chain, followed by Wet, Wet, Wet or shite. So unfair. But life is unfair. Okay, some poems from Corona World, which I wrote during the first lockdown. None of these poems have titles. I'm told by the girl behind the local store counter that I'm only allowed to buy 1 bar of dairy milk and 1 packet of salt and vinegar crisps. I can choose another flavour if I really need a second packet. Alternative flavours are deemed acceptable, smoky bacon or plain. I only want salt and vinegar, which complements the sweetness of the chocolate. If I go out and come back in wearing a false moustache, and I buy another. Totally true. Sitting listening to what is coming, the soothing sound of a tea-time ambulance, an ice cream van playing the theme from Monty Python. The BBC are showing repeats of Miranda to keep the nation's morale erect. And still the spirit of the blitz and delicate millennials, Generation Z. I hope there's not a shortage of razor blades in Tesco. I'm beginning to wonder if unfettered lengthening of unsightly nasal hair is one of the symptoms of coronavirus. I've never done as much plucking in my life. Every time I look, there's another long white hair straggling down from one of my nostrils, usually the left. Fever, cough, nose pube. It makes no sense, it all makes sense. Mask on for the first time, feeling like a superhero or a supervillain. Fat man. The Piddler. Only 2 wandering mortals in the whole of Tesco are wearing one. Nobody really gives a toss. Green wanker. Mad shatter. I search down the one-way system when I should be searching up. Redirected breath makes my glasses mist over, so I can't be sure of what I hope I'm buying. Iron Brewman, Mr. Cheese. Without hope, we have nothing. As I pass a newspaper stand, I notice the headline on Weekend Sport, which says, "Free sex toys for nurses," next to a photo of a happy young woman with resplendent breasts. I just hope it isn't the government who is ordering them. Penis substitutes from Turkey, the wrong batteries from Iran. They'll be waiting a long time for DIY ecstasy. Someone made a quick film of a young roe deer with its cute horns at the junction of Buchanan Street, Bath Street at 6 in the morning. Nothing else awake except a landing pigeon and the worker who saw it from the doorway of Sainsbury's. It probably came from the necropolis about 3/4 of a mile away to see what's happening with the human race. City of the dead, city of the living. It's listening outside a Rolex shop, but it's not wearing a watch and doesn't have any money to buy one. It's a wonderful world. It isn't afraid. I wouldn't hang around for too long, little dear. Run all the way home to the gravestones. The 2 legs are coming back.
Wow.
Sounds in the distance, sounds like someone giving a free concert from their front lawn. Out of tune crooning, drifting on the wind. Lost chords, muffed beats. Later, the sound of Elton John singing Tiny Dancer. Blue Jean Baby has got the rabies. Or something like that. Maybe he's flown in on his private jet to resuscitate the buddies of Paisley. Raise money for the NHS. Rocket Man and Your Song from a flappy marquee, a soft auditorium in Abbey Close. Madman specs, transplanted hair. Geese crocodile rock, you big poof. Or maybe it's just an old-fashioned tape someone found in a box and pressed play. Manual override, a reminder of a clunkier age, lighter air. Lady likes onion gravy, or something like that. Repeat offender. Goodnight Girl by Wet, Wet, Wet is playing in my local Premier retail store as I search for a packet of salt and vinegar crisps, which makes me think of an old poem I wrote which ended with the line, "Wet, wet, wet, we're shite," and gives me a perfectly legitimate excuse to end this new poem with the words, "Wet, wet, wet, we're shite." Couldn't resist doing that.
That's cheating.
Okay, 2 poems from Replacement Service, collected bus poems, published by Linda's Lovely Seahorse Publications. Touching. The small-headed woman with a scrunched up face, who doesn't think the way we're supposed to think, the way everyone thinks we're supposed to think, stands unsteadily at the edge of the pavement and stretches out her left arm in the direction of her carer, who's standing on the platform of the bus, who stretches out her right arm in return while saying, "Come on, Karen, you can do it." And their fingers are almost touching, like a painting on a ceiling, and finally touching the way they're supposed to touch, the way everyone knows we're supposed to touch. Blue bag. On the 9 bus, the alcoholic with the thin wrists, and the long, thin black hair and the black beard, who may be old or young, tenderly pulls the half bottle of vodka from out of his wrinkly blue bag, but not all the way then. Quietly, with his long, thin fingers, it seems reverently, unscrews the red top and brings the mouth of the bottle up to his own mouth like a kiss, and tilts the bottle and takes a long, long, long mouthful that seems to last forever. Then untilts the bottle, and quietly with his long, thin fingers, it seems sacredly screws the red top back on and puts it back in his wrinkly blue bag, and then searches for his right jacket pocket and searches for his left jacket pocket, and looks over his left shoulder and looks over his right shoulder to see if someone is there, and tenderly pulls the half bottle of vodka from out of his wrinkly blue bag, but not all the way. It's kind of spiritual, that one. Okay, I'll finish with this one, which is hopefully just a piece of history. We'll never hear from this person again, but I don't think so. The Muppet Show. Glasgow, 13th July 2018. Fuck off, you tiny-handed, orange-faced cunt. Painted in red on card is one of the less ambiguous messages at the Death to Donald Trump rally in George Square in the sunshine, as is Bobag, Trump's a Fud, Rage Against the Tangerine, Trump's in Egypt, said in a bubble by a stuck-on cat, a pussy on a placard. A saltire saying, "Fuck off, you fanny." A Welsh dragon saying, "I hate fascists." As babies dreaming in prams and not in cages, obliviously mixed with ministers, political or religious, activists and reactivists, urologists, sociologists, anarchists, telephonists, taps af sunburnt bampots, dogs with signs saying pugs against despots, toddlers with signs saying toddlers against Trump, old ladies booing when prompted, cannabis smokers, energy drinkers, Muslims and atheists and candlestick makers. Fuck off, you racist cunt. Donald, where's your conscience? A Buddhist monk who's had enough, holding a sign that says Trump's a Muppet. 2 orange balloons in a transparent bag, which looks like a big orange arse, with a blonde wig, as American tourists pass by on the open-top sightseeing bus, taking pictures and saying, "Oh, Elmer, isn't this quaint?" Thank you.
So I'm Linda Jackson, and I'm going to do a couple of songs when this band's offered to support me. This is nothing to do with Jim McLean, sorry. Gavin will tell you a wee story after how there's a link. He always finds some kind of link because he's like a library of information. Anyway, so I'd like to do this for the love of my life, and this is a Dylan song. Ain't no use to sit and wonder why, babe, if and you don't know by now. Ain't no use to sit and wonder why, babe, it don't matter anyhow. When the rooster crows at the break of dawn, look out your window and I'll be gone. You're the reason I'm traveling on. Don't think twice, it's alright. Ain't no use to turning on your light, the light I never known. Ain't no use turning on your light, babe. I'm on the dark side of the road. I ain't saying you treated me unkind. You could have done better, but I don't mind. But you just wasted all my precious time. Don't think twice, it's alright.
I'm a piano player.
So long, honey baby, where I'm bound, I won't tell. Goodbye is too good a word, babe, so I'll just say fairly well. Thinking and wondering, walking down the road, I once loved a man, child I was told. Gave him my heart, but he wanted my soul. Don't think twice, it's alright. So I'm walking down a long, lonely road. Where I'm bound, I can't tell. Goodbye's too good a word, so I just say fairly well. I ain't saying you treated me unkind. You should have done better, but I don't mind. You just wasted all my precious time. Don't think twice, it's alright. Don't think twice, it's alright. Spears when I was 14, 15 maybe. I went to his house out at the park in Paisley, Paisley girl myself, and I went there to get some guitar lessons off him, and this was the song he taught me then. And I think the times we're living in are difficult, to say the least, and I think if we could, my mother's a mill worker, if we could do some weaving, I think there's a lot of weaving getting done here, certainly Jim McLean with all these lyrics and poetry that we've heard Gavin announcing tonight. There's a lot of weaving still to be done, so it's great that we're having these nights. This is Golden Thread. Oh, had I a golden thread, a needle so fine, I would weave a magic strand of rainbow design, of rainbow design. In it I would weave the bravery of women giving birth, and in it I would weave the innocence of children over this earth, of children all over the earth. Oh, had I a golden thread, a needle so fine, I would weave a magic strand of rainbow design, of rainbow design. Far across the waters I'd stretch my magic band to every foreign city, to every single land, to every single land. Show my brothers and my sisters my rainbow design, and mind of the sorry world with hand and heart and mind, with hand and heart and mind. Oh, had I a golden thread, a needle so fine, I would weave a magic strand of rainbow design, of rainbow design. Thank you very much for your beautiful singing. Thanks to Gavin.
I'd like to welcome to the stage Donna Campbell.
My name is Donna Campbell. So as and I've actually got a wee poem here about Glencoe. So this is where there's a book coming out in November roughly, and it's called Wonderlas Women, and it's 4 poets, and so this is writing some poems. So this is still a work in progress, but this is Glencoe. Passing Glencoe in a bus to Fort William, I constantly changed seats to get a better view of how streaks of sunlight, escaping mist, sparkles snow on top of peaks, nudging the sky to behave itself and budge over. I swear I glimpsed Brigadoon shimmering at the feet of 3 sisters, watched as shadows of clouds skim purpling heather, cloaking the path of Glencoe. Over eons of time, a ferocious earth birthed erupting volcanoes, the clash of tectonic plates, valleys, moors, and a staircase fit for devils. All of this before sentient life was born. By the time I got my camera out, the bus had moved on. So, anyway, I'm going to, a lot of the stuff I write is autobiographical. This poem is called In the Past, and it's to anybody that's experienced domestic abuse and anybody that's still experienced domestic abuse. I thought about you last night, the red and the brown of your hair, the way you would stare as I spoke with old girlfriends over the phone, your eyes holding bags of anxiety beneath them, shadowed veins of blue. I remember times I would lie in bed, feigning the breath of a woman deep in slumber, but it never deterred your hand, nor the cold blank spank of your body gearing up for the ride next to mine. I hated you more. I fucking hated you most then. Desperate, tried to be as dead as a person could be, an unpliable mass of rigor mortis emotion, but it didn't work. Perhaps you liked it that way. I don't wonder what you're up to these days, or lying the dead of night, waiting for your key to fit into the lock and for you to come in beside me. It is only time that affords hindsight, contemplation, and a knowledge of what insanity is really all about. Thank you. So this next one is about getting pissed and pissing yourself, basically. Never-ending story. Ken yawn when you've just woken up, with slivers round the side of your mouth and down your chin, and your een are nippy as fuck, and your clays are covered in muck, the drunken ball and the drunken night afore, and there's some cunt knocking on your door important, like, and you've pissed yourself at some point during the night. Ken yawn when all of a sudden you feel like greeting, but you're dried up like a fish washed up, and nae tears will come, and nae tears will come, and you tell yourself, and you ken yawn, you've just woken up with slivers round the side of your mouth and down your chin, your een are nippy as fuck, and your clays are covered in muck. They are the drunken boy, or be the drunken night afore, and there's some cunt knocking on your door important, like, and you pissed yourself at some point. Ken yawn when all of a sudden you feel like greeting, but you're dried up like a fish washed up, and nae tears will come, and nae tears will come, and nae tears will come, and you tell yourself, and you tell yourself that has to. Thank you. This is about the club scene in Glasgow in the 90s, and Glasgow's always been renowned for music, hasn't it? Very much renowned, and club scene was brilliant in the 90s, but I just couldn't stop. I had to keep going and going and going. So this is called Aint No Stopping. Oh, and it was the after club parties, that was the ticket to get in there. So you ended up going to clubs to get the tickets, go to the after club parties, because they could go on for days and they were amazing. So this is called Aint No Stopping. This is the land of the heavy selling sweaty groins. The land J.M. Barrie, perhaps chilly in a corner, first into that caricature of adolescence. You know the one, Peter Pan, that guy who never quite got beyond a wank. A good wank, mind you, but a wank just the same. This is also the land of techno, house and hip-hop vampires, feeding till bloated morsel of faith, where urban Welsh is unwrapped up me spot the first train. Electric, steam, loco, who cares? Because this land couldn't really give a toss. Shipping its borders nightly, it harboured refugees from all walks nocturnal life, puking up with a large belch, bereft, bleary-eyed souls into the dreaded daylights, whom mutterings consist of never again. I say never again. Do you see smiles of recognition? Yeah. No, you're not meant to laugh at that bit. No, come on. What do you do out there and the lights go up and the sounds go down? Get home with your tail between your legs. What, do you think life's too short to party or something? I'm talking after club parties to your man, AFTERCLUB. Not the place for fledglings who spill beer down their chin and run to the loo to wipe up their nappy-pammy terror. I'm talking fun and sheer desperation rolled into one that'll create a bloody monster out of you, especially if you're trying to hold on to one of those old 95s, especially if you ain't got any of those old alibis or cheeky wee lies, because this is the land, hey, this is the land of psychosis in the making, fake and fun, and at the end of the day, by God, it's got a terrible price to pay. Thank you. And this is called The Loneliness of the Long Distance Artist. It's always dark at this time of night, sitting shyly behind curtains, shadows wait forlornly to catch his movement, hitch a ride in the nape of his neck in the small tenement flat where he takes men friends home for tea, letting them outside in the evening to the sound of trains floating by, and where dismembered memories of sleeping with friends send shivers down the spine of a windless moon, who takes leave of its senses when full, and Dorsey's shine as though it were its own. The first time he dipped his hands into art, the sight of its blood fascinated him. Hot chocolate spilling over cushions, mocked the bird, nailed by the wing frames or centrepiece at the lip of his mouth. Rumour has it, he sleeps by day and by night gets painfully drunk in absurdity, naming loneliness as a request. Naming loneliness as a requisite to madness, in masturbation a quiet flick of the wrist, done in time to the loud tick of clocks, spelling millions of would-be babies on the stroke of 12 midnight. 'Cause it's always dark at this time of night, shadows wait. Thank you.
Whoa.
This is my first collection, out last year, published by Seahorse Publications in Linda. And again, I can't thank you enough, Linda, for the amount of work that went into this. So this is just a wee one. The book's called Mumble, and Linda's got some there for me. Imagine that. Right, this is called The Hoops, the Jers, and Wee Jamesy. After the game, the shadow of a near quiet Hampden, we ate a smoked sausage supper in the crack with some wains who were playing with a football about how the Celtic we would have won the cup if only they'd been playing, and it was their wee James and no Hartson who'd taken the penalty that day. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I think it's really good to have the poets and the singers in the same room, because before there were the Scottish singers, there were the Scottish poets, and one of the first of something like the modern age was Maurice Blythman, who would write under Thurso Berwick, and he meant that to kind of encapsulate all of Scotland from the top right down to the bottom. It became pretty much just what he used as his own poetry name, and his songs would usually be issued as Maurice Blythman. And I'm going to do two Maurice Blythman songs, but they were kind of part of the collective, and everybody would throw a wee line into these songs. But in case you don't know, there's a wee bit of background. We're looking at exactly 60 years ago. The USA nuclear submarine called the Proteus came sailing up the Clyde up through Dunoon and going to the Holy Loch. And a bunch of young guys and a bunch of young girls thought, we're no having this. We're going to go out and form a welcoming committee in our wee boats. So they all get into their wee kayaks and dinghies and canoes and put the hoods up and their duffel coats and their parkas or whatever. And they went out, and how incredibly brave. Not knowing at all, it was the first time a submarine had come up the Clyde. But no, they went out there, and I believe one of them actually managed to clamber on to the fucker. They went out there, and later there was a press conference, and the captain's name was Captain Lanning. Like I say, the submarine was the Proteus. And they asked him about this unusual welcoming committee. And he said it looked as if we were being attacked by the goddamn Glasgow Eskimos. Now Maurice Blythman and his colleagues and his compadres took that to heart, and they took the Eskimo as being a badge of courage and a badge of honour, because they lived in all the northern lands. They never started wars, they never had any nuclear arms, they never had any arms stocked up. Oh, you can't spend $1 when you're dead. Oh, you can't spend $1 when you're dead. Singing ding dong dollar, everybody holler. You can't spend $1 when you're dead. That's the chorus. The Yanks had just dropped anchor in Dunoon, and they've had a civic welcome for the tune. When they came up that measured mile, Bonnie Mary of Argyle was wearing spangled drawers, a blow her good. Oh, but you can't spend $1 when you're dead. Again, oh, you can't spend $1 when you're dead. Ding dong dollar, singing ding dong dollar, everybody holler. You can't spend $1 when you're dead. Oh, well, the publicans will all be dead swell, for we've just the thing that's sure to ring their bell. Aye, the dollars they will jingle, there'll be no elastic single, even they'll maybe blow us all to hell. Come on now! Oh, but you can't spend $1 when you're dead. Oh, you can't spend $1 when you're dead. Singing ding dong dollar, everybody holler. You can't spend $1 when you're dead. Oh, but the Glasgow moderator doesn't mind. In fact, he thinks the Yanks are awfully kind. For if it's heaven that you're going, there's a quicker way than rowing, and there's sure to be nobody left behind. Come on now! Oh, but you can't spend $1 when you're dead. A wee bit different this time. So tell Kennedy he's got to keep the heat. That dates it. Singing ding dong dollar, everybody holler. You can't spend $1 when you're dead. Now I've got one more. This little medley of songs from Ding Dong Dollar. There is a part of Glasgow where you have to ask permission to sing this song if it's based on marching through Georgia. Within a certain 1.5 miles of Ibrook Stadium, you have to ask permission before you can sing this melody. So I've asked permission, and I've been granted permission. It's up the Clyde, King Lannan, a super duper yank. Doing a dance sight quicker when we count them down the stank. We're up to our neck in sludge and sewage fairly stops your swank. For we are the Glasgow Eskimos. And what do we say? We say hello, hello. We are the Eskimos. We say hello, hello. We're the Glasgow Eskimos. Well, Gavin and Yathcott Lannan, no spear and worry blows. For we are the Glasgow Eskimos. There's dredgers, there's sludgy boats to keep our river clean. You lift your hand, you pull the chain, you can't find what I mean. So why in the hell is the holy loch been left outside that scheme? For we are the Glasgow Eskimos. And what do we say? We say hello, hello. We are the Eskimos. We say hello, hello. The Glasgow Eskimos. Well, Gavin, Yathcott Lannan, no spear and worry blows. For we are the Glasgow Eskimos. You know many a tear. We'll sort it out as kind before, we'll sort them anywhere. So get your harpoons ready, he's coming up for air. And we are the Glasgow Eskimos, let me hear ya. Hello, hello, we are the Eskimos. Hello, hello, we're the Glasgow Eskimos. We'll give them you've got Lannon and we'll speed and what he blows. For we are the Glasgow one more time, let me hear ye. Hello, hello, we are the Eskimos. Come on! Hello, hello, we're the Glasgow Eskimos. We'll give them you've got Lannon and we'll speed and what he blows. For we are the Glasgow Eskimos. Yes, we are the Glasgow